Hello, how are you doing? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I am doing on the whistle reaction to Harlequins' victory over Sale Sharks. The match has literally just finished, so going to go through some of my observations from the game and also some observations on the Premiership as a whole. This leaves Saracens as the only undefeated team in the division, so I kind of look at what it means for Sale and Saracens and the top of the table, and also Quins, a really important win for them as well. If you're new here, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and most importantly of all, drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think of this round of Premiership fixtures. There were some interesting results in there, even the ones that I maybe don't get into in this video, but in particular for Sale, Harlequins, and even Saracens as well as the only undefeated team. I'd love to hear from you on your thoughts. All right, let's get into it. So, Sale 13, Harlequins 29. Big victory for Quins, heading up to the northwest, not somewhere that they go too often and get a result, and a significant result for them, particularly of how their seasons started as well. I'll focus on Harlequins as the victors first of all. It means they've played 6, won 3, lost 3 so far this season, moves them up to 5th in the table. So I say that it's a big victory for Quins. They'd come into this having lost more games than they had won. If they lose this, they already would have only won 2 in their opening 6 matches. It would have been a season where perhaps already you were looking at it and thinking they needed to drastically improve if they were to make the top 4. But I think this is a victory, a little bit of a statement, just settles everyone down a little bit, and they can kick on from this, particularly coming up against a Sale team who'd been really impressive at the start of the season, hadn't lost yet. They've inflicted their first loss on the Sale Sharks, and they've done it up in Manchester. That can't be underestimated. I think it's a big victory for Harlequins, and they needed it, really. It was their best performance, I think, this season already. I haven't seen all of their games, from what I have seen and looking at their results, I think this is their best performance. They've been a little bit unlucky in part, haven't they? They had a very narrow defeat at home to Saracens. Last play of the game defeat away to Exeter Chiefs, where it was was it a forward pass, wasn't it a forward pass? So we could be sat here talking about Harlequins with a very different set of results. And I guess that's what they will be speaking about within their camp, that they could have 2 more wins on the board. And actually we're all looking at them and thinking they're competing with Sale and Saracens for that top spot. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic, but I think it was a big performance. I think it was a really, really important result for them. And the backbone of it, in my opinion, was actually their defensive work. They've had the most jackals already this season, which isn't necessarily something you would associate with Harlequins, their ability to disrupt at the breakdown. But they were able to do that against Sale, who always bring the physicality. And Harlequins brought the physicality themselves in their defence. I'm going to get onto Sale's red zone efficiency in a moment or two when I speak about them. And partly it was to do, I think, with Sale perhaps not attacking quite as well as we have seen them do in the first 5 rounds. But it also had a lot to do with Harlequins' defence. They matched them physically and they came up with big turnovers when they needed to. So that's a fundamental for any team. And the fact that Harlequins had that here, I think is a really good sign for them moving forward. Also, a mention to Marcus Smith. He got man of the match in the end, got well over 20 points for Quins. Very, very impressive performance. Good to see from an England perspective this close to the autumn in Marcus Smith, that perhaps had, by his standards, a little bit of a quieter start to the season. But this was a game where the first Harlequins try, he got on the end of a break, put a lovely kick through kind of diagonally as he was running through for them to score in the corner. And then he finished off their second try as well, where someone else had made the break. They moved it wide and he was able to cut back inside and score the try as well. And he was very, very good from the tee. Harlequins taking the penalties when they needed them and just keeping that scoreboard pressure on Sale. And Marcus Smith overall, I think, was a good, very good performance from him, actually. Particularly when you think about Marcus Smith, and most of the time we're probably thinking his unbelievable sidestep and cutting open defences. But this is actually the sort of performance that, in my opinion, shows how much he's developing as a fly half, because it was about making the right decisions in the right moments, which he did in terms of that kick through, in terms of cutting back inside for the try score. It's about being solid from the boot and being able to keep the scoreboard pressure up. He did all of that. So from Marcus Smith's point of view, very, very good performance. Breakdown was the other thing I've mentioned already. That was next on my list. All right, let's move on to Sale. Their first defeat of the season. Now, overall, I wouldn't be worried if I was a Sale Sharks supporter, because I think, in a sense, and as good as Harlequins were, there was an element in this game that was still Sale beating themselves. Handling errors in the first half, I think BT Sport flashed up at half-time a statistic that Sale had made 9 handling errors in that first half. And I must admit, watching the game, I kind of felt like Sale, for a lot of it, looked like the better team. They looked more dangerous when they got ball in hand. And I think they just didn't capitalise on the opportunities that they got, really. Penalty count as well was really high. I think it was around 15 for Sale, which is higher than normal for them. And as well, their red zone efficiency, which I mentioned before, they got into the 22 of Harlequins a lot more than Harlequins got up the other end, but they just came away with less points. They didn't capitalise, they turned the ball over, they dropped it, they had a lack of accuracy, and I would say those are the sort of things that in the first 5 games of the season where Sale have had such a good start and did look to have turned a corner, I think was a difference. I think they looked like they were getting more out of their attack and they were getting more out of it quickly, whereas there are quite a few occasions in this game where you felt that Sale had really good field position and then they might give away a penalty or they'd drop it or they might just lose their attacking shape altogether. There was a really good example in the second half where Harlequins kicked the ball over. Tom O'Flaherty came flying onto it to collect it for Sale, actually broke through the first defensive line, and then after a few phases, they just kind of lost their shape a little bit. I think there was quite a number of occasions where they moved the ball back, in some instances quite quickly, but it went into an outside channel where you had 2 front row forwards and they just didn't have that cutting edge, which actually they have been pretty good at so far this season. So when I say I'm not worried for Sale, I think we've already seen them do these things well this season. For whatever reason, in this game, it didn't happen for them. Will be slight concern losing at home. That's traditionally a place where it's harder for teams to go. But, you know, even so, as I say, Sale, I think, have been good so far this season. In terms of just one player I wanted to highlight is Carpenter at fullback. For me, so far, he's been the breakthrough player this season. He looks completely comfortable at fullback. And do you remember how when Freddie Stewart, for example, sort of broke through at Leicester, broke into the England team, everything just, he looked completely natural competing at that level. Carpenter reminds me of that. I think he was brilliant under the high ball, particularly in the second half. He looks like he's good with ball in hand. I think he's an exciting prospect, actually, for us to keep an eye on. And I thought he had another good performance here, despite the fact that he was on the losing side. So just before I finish up, what does this mean for the table? Well, I mentioned it before. Saracens are the only undefeated team. They've played 6, they've won 6, and they've picked up 5 bonus points as well. So they're top of the table on 29 points. Sale now are second still, but they have been defeated for the first time this season. They're on 24 points, and then Gloucester in third on 20 points, although actually Gloucester have a game in hand, so could go above Sale with a bonus point win. Then Northampton, then Harlequins, and Leicester, Bristol. I don't think we need to go too much further down the table for now. But why this is really interesting, and it's a bit of a shame in a way, is because Sale's next match is against Saracens, away to Saracens. How good would that have been if it was the 2 undefeated teams, the 2 front runners, the 2 early pace setters this season coming up against each other? I think that would have been awesome. So a little bit of shine has been lost off that fixture, in my opinion. Yes, it's still first against second. We're still going to be really fascinated by it. But I think Saracens at the moment are out on their own in terms of laying down a marker. Can anyone catch them? I think that they won't be caught this season now. They're going to do what Leicester Tigers did last year, what we've seen teams do before, where they are currently the best team in the league and they're going to prove that and they're going to remain top of the table. But what a way for Sale to respond to their first defeat, going away to Saracens. You know that Sale are going to be hugely physical, still going to be a great game. So let's wait and see what happens. All right, those are my kind of on-the-whistle thoughts of Sale's defeat against Harlequins at home to Quins. Also what it means in terms of the Premiership table. Remember, if you're new here, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and drop a comment down below. Everything I've spoken about. Are Saracens going to stay there at number 1? What do you make of Sale? What do you make of Quins? And anything else. It could be anything about rugby, in all honesty. It doesn't even have to relate to this video. Love to hear from you. All right, I'll see you in the next one.